Right, good morning and welcome. Today and for the next few weeks we're going to talk about meditation. It's a subject that everybody's interested in, many people want to do, and so I thought it might be good to talk about meditation in a purely practical way so that those of you who would like to take up this practice would be able to. And I think that the best place to start on this subject is to talk about, first of all, the reasons why somebody would want to meditate. That it is important to be clear in your own mind why it is that you want to meditate. And the reason why I say that this is important is because there are many different types of meditation, having many different goals. And you need to do the practice which is suitable for your particular goal, whatever it happens to be. Now, it seems to me that you could say that the people who meditate for, or who are interested in meditation, are interested for one of three reasons. Practical reasons, or what I would call therapeutic reasons, or for want of a better term, for transcendental reasons. I think that the majority of people are interested in meditation for practical reasons. That is, they find that their life is very stressful, or they find that they've got a lot of anxiety, or they're not as happy as they would like to be, and they think that meditation will help them, and so they take up meditation to help improve the quality of their life. Now, all the research, and there is a lot of research on this subject now, indicates that meditation is very, very good for this. It actually does help you to relieve stress, and it does increase the quality of your life. So that's the first reason why people would take up the practice of meditation. The second reason why people would take up the practice of meditation is for therapeutic reasons. They have a serious psychological problem. They're suffering from clinical depression, or a great deal of anxiety, or perhaps even schizophrenia or something like this, and they think that meditation is going to cure them. They think that meditation is going to restore them to normality. Now, once again, meditation, given certain circumstances, has been shown to be able to assist people with some of these serious personality or psychological problems. So that would be a second reason why people take up meditation. And the third reason people would take up meditation would be what I would call for transcendental reasons. They want to attain union with God, or they want to attain nirvana, or they want to attain the first stage of enlightenment. And again, this is the whole purpose of meditation from the Buddhist perspective. The last two steps on the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path are Samma Sati and Samma Samadhi. These are two of the practices that orientate us towards and help us to attain a transcendental state called enlightenment. So this would be the third reason why somebody takes up meditation. Now, my feeling is that the second and the third reasons for taking up meditation, which I've just talked about, are problematic. While meditation could be very helpful to helping somebody in a therapeutic sense, the reality is that most meditation teachers are not experienced at guiding somebody who has psychological problems, and therefore meditation may actually aggravate their problem rather than sort it out. So if you are taking up, or if you want to take up meditation for therapeutic reasons, I would encourage you not to. I would encourage you to go to your psychoanalyst or your therapist or your psychiatrist or whatever it is, sort out that problem. And when you're back to your normal state, then take up meditation. I would discourage anybody taking up meditation for therapeutic reasons unless their therapist is the one who is teaching them the meditation. Then, for those who want to meditate for transcendental reasons, I would say that this is a problem too, because the reality is that the majority of people really don't know what they're talking about when they talk about the first stage of enlightenment or nirvana. So in actual fact, they're taking up meditation out of very idealistic and perhaps even romantic ideas. The basis of their desire for meditation is really not based on reality. And my experience is that people who take up meditation for these reasons, once again, sometimes get themselves into problems. The main problem being they become obsessed with so-called steps or stages that they're supposed to have attained or that they hope to attain. They get very caught up in these sort of theoretical steps, stages. Or the other one is they become very frustrated. You know, I've been meditating for 3 years and I'm still not enlightened. They become very frustrated. So my feeling is that the best reason to take up meditation is for purely practical reasons. To psychologically sort yourself out. To attain a degree of mental clarity and calm so that you can function in the world better. And the reality is, of course, that even if you take up meditation for transcendental reasons, you'd have to pass through this stage anyway. So today and in the future, I'm going to talk about meditation purely from a practical point of view. So let us consider that our goal in practicing meditation for the time being is purely practical, to help me function in the world better, to become a more relaxed, a more happy, a more tranquil person, somebody who can deal with the knocks and blows of ordinary life. Now the second issue we have to look at when we're talking about meditation, and specifically Buddhist meditation, is this: that Buddhist meditation is a part of a whole system. It is a part of the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha didn't teach the Noble Onefold Path, right meditation. He taught the Noble Eightfold Path, of which things pertaining to meditation are in 2 of these stages. So, for example, you know, a battery or a spark plug or something like that gets a car moving. But if you only have the battery or the spark plugs in the car, it won't move. It's an essential part of getting a car to move. But in actual fact, all the other parts are essential too. So anybody who's taking up meditation needs to consider following the 5 precepts. Practicing right speech, avoiding drugs, alcohol and other drugs, and things like this. Meditation divorced from the other steps on the Noble Eightfold Path is unlikely to be as helpful as it would be otherwise. In other words, practicing meditation while making absolutely no other changes or modifications to your life, your behavior, your attitude is unlikely to be helpful. So, first of all, we have to be clear about why we want to meditate. Secondly, we have to be clear that meditation is a part of a whole. It can't be taken out of that whole and be expected to produce results. So having said that and having considered it, how do we start? It's really very simple. The Buddha talks about several primary steps in the practice of meditation. 4 of them, in fact. In the Satipatthana Sutta and several other suttas, he talks about, first of all, the place where you should meditate, the posture you should adopt for meditating, the actual practice itself. So let us have a look at these. Let's say you want to take up meditation. The first thing you have to consider is, where am I going to do it? And in the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha says, go to the forest, the root of a tree, or an empty house. Aranyagatu, Rukamulagatu, Sunyagara Gatu. So we need not go to the forest nowadays, but what we need is, what the sutta makes it clear is, a place of solitude and relative silence. So this could be your room, or it could be your whole house, or it could be your flat, or indeed it could be the forest or the garden. First of all, you find a place where you're unlikely to be disturbed. If it's in your room or your house, you disconnect the phone, you turn off the television, the radio. It can be good to make arrangements so that you're unlikely to be disturbed during the time you do your meditation. The next one is your posture. Go to an empty place, forest, the root of a tree, and then you sit down with your legs crossed. Nisidati palankang abujitva. So you put a pillow under your buttocks, perhaps fold a blanket on the floor with a pillow on it, put your buttocks on the pillow, and cross or fold your legs. You put your hands in your lap, nestle your hands in your lap, or put them on your knees. And the important thing is, as you start and through the whole practice, in the beginning of your practice and years later, the most important thing is that the posture be comfortable, that you be comfortable in that state. Now, many people seem to think that the sign that your meditation is going well is that you don't move. People become obsessed with moving. In reality, it's quite okay to move. The reality is that if you are comfortable and your body is relaxed, there's no tension or anxiety or cramped muscles, chances are you will be still. Not because you're trying to be, but you're naturally comfortable, and so you're still. Throughout your practice, make sure that your body is comfortable and relaxed. And then he says, and keep your body straight. Ujjung kayam, which means to keep your back straight. Keep your back straight without being rigid. And of course, you don't have to sit on the floor. You could sit on a chair. Either way, make sure your back is straight. And then the third step is parimukkhang satting upattapetva. Arouse or evoke your mindfulness in front of you. Parimukkhang satting upattapetva. Pari, as in the English perimeter. Mukkhang, face or mouth. Upattapetva, bring up. Establish. Establish your mindfulness in front of you. And this is usually interpreted to mean, and I believe that it does, that you put your attention somewhere in front of your face. And because it's called mindfulness of breathing, anapanasati, it must mean below your nose. Now, people can get really quite obsessed with the actual technique of meditating. Some teachers give exact and precise details and saying that it must be done this way. Others say that you must put your attention here. Some dispute that and say you must put your attention on the rise and fall of your abdomen. Some say that you must here, some say here, some say that you must count it, and so on. And these people can get extremely obsessed about these techniques. Now the reality is that nowhere in the Buddha's discourses does he give anything other than these general but clear enough instructions. Parimokkhang satting upattapetva. So the reality is that it really doesn't matter whether you put your attention here or here. The purpose is, will it help you to develop your mindfulness of the process of breathing? So I advise people to do this. Sit in a comfortable posture, nestle your hands in your lap, close your eyes and become aware of your breathing. Now it may be that quite naturally your attention goes here, or it may be quite natural that your attention goes to the rise and fall of your abdomen, or you might find that counting seems to be easier for you. Whichever way seems best for you, do that. And I would even suggest that for the first perhaps week that you're meditating, do it several different ways. Explore and find out which way is most comfortable, most convenient, and most useful for you. And having decided upon that particular way, stick to that. So you may count your breath from 1 to 10, or you may feel your breath, the warm air as you breathe out, the cool air as you breathe in. You may observe the rise and fall of your abdomen. It doesn't matter. Which way helps you to develop your mindfulness is best. And that's what the Buddha said. Parimokkhang satting upattapetva, having established your mindfulness in front of you, so satto va assa sati, satto passa sati. Mindfully you breathe in, mindfully you breathe out. Now this is very important. People think that the purpose of this practice is to concentrate, to develop concentration, samadhi. But in actual fact, neither in the name of the sutta, the Anapanasati Sutta, or in the phrase Parimokkhang satting upattapetva, does the Buddha talk about samadhi. He's talking about sati, the ability to be present with what is happening, or the ability to be mindful of what is happening, or the ability to be aware of what is happening. Now when we sit comfortably and we become naturally still, when we put our hands in our lap and close our eyes, there will only be a limited number of things happening. There will be some sensations on the body, although not many. There won't be many sounds because you're in a fairly quiet place. The most noticeable thing that will be happening is that you're breathing. You're breathing all of the time. Since the moment you were born, you were breathing, but we hardly ever are aware of this wonderful, rhythmic, gentle behavior. Here what we do is we put aside all the clutter and concerns of ordinary life. We sit down quietly and start to become aware of ourselves, perhaps for the first time. With the eyes closed, sitting in a quiet room, we become aware of the fact that we are breathing. Now inevitably, we will start to become aware of other things. Thoughts will arise, probably lots of them. Our attention may be taken away by noises outside. It is inevitable that there will be some physical discomfort even, little tickling feelings on the body, some discomfort. None of this matters. None of this should be seen as a hindrance. None of it should be labelled a distraction. Simply note those experiences. Notice that you are no longer aware of your breath, and simply reassert your presence on your breath. Be here now. And in this now, I have chosen to be aware of the gentle in and out movement of my breath. And so that is what you do. Don't see the sounds, the thoughts, or the feelings as enemies, because they're not. So each time you notice that your attention has gone away to a sound or a thought or a feeling, simply know that that is happening and return to your breath. Reassert or re-establish your attention on your breath. Now, the next question is, how long should I meditate for? How long should I do this for? How long should I sit on a chair or with my legs crossed or folded on the floor and meditate? I recommend you do this. For the first week, at least once a day, do this practice for 15 minutes. Today most clocks or watches have got some sort of alarm on them. Set your alarm for 15 minutes and put it behind you so that you're not looking at it all the time. And in that time say, well, for the next 15 minutes, it doesn't matter what happens, I'm simply giving myself to being aware of my breathing. And just do that. So for the first week, you do it for 15 minutes. Next week, you extend it by 5 minutes. The week after that, you extend it by 5 minutes until you've got up to 45 minutes, and then you leave it at that. So starting with 15 minutes, gradually each week, adding 5 minutes to the time you meditate until you get up to 45 minutes. Another question that people ask is, what do I do if there's some irritating feeling, or my legs are aching, or my buttocks have become numb? As we said, you cannot judge the success of meditation by how still you are. You judge the success of your meditation by how mindful you are. Meditation is not a sit-still competition. So if it happens that you're meditating and then you notice a cramp in your knee or whatever, once again you simply note that and return to breathing mindfully. If you find that your attention keeps on going to that feeling, it's becoming quite uncomfortable, then what you do is you move. It's no problem. You haven't been defeated. You simply move and then return to being aware. However, there are several different ways to move. One way is to move the way we always do, which is without any awareness at all. It's just a automatic, even a mechanical reaction to an experience. But because the purpose of our practice is to become mindful, now what you do is, when you've decided that that irritating feeling or that cramped feeling needs to be responded to, then you make a note. I intend to respond to that feeling. Fully aware, you move your hand. Fully aware, you scratch it, or you itch it, or you readjust your posture. You return your hand, aware, and then you switch your attention, your awareness to your breath again. So in actual fact, if you do that, if you move with mindfulness, if you move fully aware, you have not really interrupted your practice. You've just shifted the object of your practice for a few moments. So there is a continuum And there's no problem. Don't turn your meditation into a sit-still competition. How you judge the success or otherwise of your practice is not by how still you sit or how long you sit, but how mindful or aware you were. And if you do that, your meditation will be fruitful and it will help you. So next week we will start talking about the second stage in the practice of meditation. This week we've talked about, first of all, why you should meditate, for purely practical reasons. Then we talked about the 4 stages: finding a suitable place, putting your body in a suitable posture, the actual practice you do, and how to deal with problems. So that's the place you meditate, the posture you meditate in, the actual practice you use, and how you deal with specific problems. Next week we'll continue on the next stage that you need to go through to practice your meditation. Good afternoon again and welcome. We're going to continue our talks about meditation, and you will recall that last time we asked you to consider the place where you meditate, the posture you adopt when you begin your meditation. We talked about the actual procedure, what to do, how to do it, and some possible small problems that you might encounter. We also asked you to take this approach. For the first week, to meditate just for 15 minutes. So in the last week you would have been meditating for 15 minutes, and we asked you to try your best to do it at least once a day. So for the last week, hopefully you have been sitting in a comfortable posture, nestling your hands in your lap or on your knees, closing your eyes, and for 15 minutes just becoming aware of, being mindful of the movement of your breath as it goes in and out. And if you have been doing that, then you've already laid the foundations for a good, solid meditation practice, which in time will mature into a very good practice, which will start to have effects that you will notice very shortly. Now today I'd like to talk about the very center of meditation, which is mindfulness or awareness. Now last week we talked about focusing your attention on your breath, and inevitably the question will be why, and why the breath? What is the purpose of this? So to answer that question we have to go back to what we spoke about last week, which is, why are you meditating? What do you hope to achieve as a result of meditating? And we said that the best goal, the most realistic goal for meditation is to use meditation to help me to become more calm, more relaxed, more able to deal with the various knocks and blows of ordinary life. So, for the time being, that is the goal of meditation. To learn to relax, to be calm within how we are living our ordinary daily life. So then, how can fixing your attention on the breath do that? And that's a good question, and I hope to be able to answer it as best I can. Our understanding is this, that one of the major causes of distress and difficulties, confusion and self-created problems in ordinary life is that we're sort of not aware of many of the things that we do and say, of many of our reactions. Quite often we think we're doing something for this reason, whereas in fact it actually might be that we're doing it for another reason altogether. In short, the average person, the ordinary person, only has a peripheral awareness of themselves and their surroundings. So, what meditation hopes to do is to increase the amount of awareness we have, to increase our ability to be mindful from moment to moment, so that we are aware of what we're doing. We are aware of how we feel. We are aware of what we're saying at the time we're saying it, not later when it has come out. We've offended people. We find that we've created a problem for ourselves and now we regret it, not after, but as we actually do it. So, perhaps to go back a little bit, then we have to explain what is mindfulness. The English word, in a sense, is a good one. Mindfulness. Being full of mind. The Chinese character for mindfulness is heart now. How your heart is, or how your mind is at any one moment. And in classical Buddhism, the term is sati, or smarti in Sanskrit, which really means self-remembering. And it's interesting to note that the great Russian mystic, Gurdjieff, he used this same principle in his teachings, and he actually called it self-remembering. Knowing, being aware of oneself from moment to moment, or being in the present moment, or awareness in the present moment. Now, we have periods in our daily life when we are aware. So, for example, when somebody takes out a camera and points it at you and says, "Be natural," suddenly you become very self-aware, usually in an awkward sense, but very self-aware. But under normal circumstances, the input from our senses, sights, sounds, smells, and what have you, and our mental reaction to them, liking and disliking, daydream and fantasizing, is so overwhelming. It's such a large part of our ordinary consciousness that the possibilities of awareness are limited. And when we are lacking in awareness, when we are lacking in mindfulness, as we said, we tend to create problems for ourselves because, in a sense, we are reacting automatically and half-consciously, almost mechanically, you may say, to the situations that we encounter in life. How to change this situation? What can we do to become more aware, to increase the quality and the duration of awareness in our daily life? So now we come back to meditation. So what we do is We sit in a quiet place, so there's a limited amount of distractions. We sit in a comfortable posture, and we take a very ordinary experience, the in and out movement of the breath, and we choose to become, if not aware of anything else, at least aware of the fact that we are breathing. Now, all of us have been breathing since the moment we are born, but we are almost never aware of it. So what we do is we take this one experience, for the time being disregarding any other experiences, and we make the resolution, from the time I sit down and close my eyes till the time the alarm goes in 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I'm going to make a resolution to be as mindful as I can be of my breath. Now, inevitably what will happen is, simply because of habit, very soon our mind will grow bored of that object, of that in and out movement. It will become bored with the feeling of cool as the breath moves in the nostrils, or the feeling of warm as the breath moves out of the nostrils. It will no longer be interested in feeling the belt around your abdomen becoming tight as you breathe in and becoming loose as you breathe out. It will no longer be interested in even the sound of the breath, the in sound, the out sound. And it will want to, your attention will want to go to something else. You'll start thinking about what you were doing before. You will start fantasizing about what you're going to do later. You will deliberately create some sort of daydream to escape from the boredom. In fact, the ordinary mind will try to do anything other than simply to be aware now. And if you have been doing the practice for 15 minutes for the last week, you will notice that this is a very well-established habit in your mind. But this is the good news. The only reason that your mind wanders, the only reason why all these discursive thoughts come in, is simply because of habit. It's simply because you've never done it before. The habit that we have established is of allowing our consciousness, our awareness, our attention to wander wherever it wanted. If we are 20 or 30 or 40 years old, then our consciousness has been doing that for 20 or 30 or 40 years. It may take some time to change, but it can be. Just as unhelpful or negative habits are developed simply by doing it frequently, by acting upon them frequently, more wholesome, more helpful, more skillful habits can be developed by doing it more, practicing it more frequently. And this is why we asked you to meditate at least once a day. So, the reason that we are focusing our attention on the breath is as the first step in increasing our degree of mindfulness. Now, when you are sitting and meditating, you will notice that it's not just that our attention goes to thoughts and images, ideas of the past or future, daydreams and fantasies. It is that we, as it were, get involved in them. It's almost that we lose ourselves in them. And in fact, it sometimes happens when a meditator is meditating, he or she sits down, resolving to keep their attention on the breath. A few minutes later, their attention goes away, some interesting daydream or fantasy or memory, reliving some pleasant experience, and a few seconds later the alarm bell goes. Without knowing it, they have been carried away, is the term we use, carried away for 15 minutes without even being aware of it. Mindfulness helps us to gradually break that negative habit and establish a positive one. How do we deal with these very persistent daydreams, fantasies, and discursive thoughts? Imagine that you're working in an office on the 3rd floor of a building in the middle of the city, and that your desk happens to be right next to the window, and you're working on your computer there, and then you hear a bang downstairs, out in the street, and you look down and you see a car accident. One car has knocked into the back of another car. And while you are doing your computer, working on your computer, you look down at this and you observe. You see that one car has knocked into the other. You see the first driver, the driver in the first car, get out, and then the driver in the second car gets out. You can't hear them, but you can see them. The first driver looks very angry. They are gesticulating. They are arguing with each other. The first driver punches the second one. Then you see a crowd of people gathered around. You're observing this, but you're completely detached. You're not involved. It's an interesting incident for you, but nothing more. Those people, on the other hand, they are hot under the collar. They're angry. The people observing are taking one side or the other. They're very, very involved in what is happening, but you're observing it from a distance. It's nothing to you. It's just an interesting incident. You observe it for some time, you may even smile, and then you get back to your computer. This is the attitude of the detached onlooker, ajupekati. If you can gradually develop the attitude of the detached onlooker, then your meditation will be a success. So, when you're sitting down, focusing your attention on your breath, being a detached onlooker to that experience, and then you cease to be a detached onlooker, but rather you get involved in, carried away by some intruding thought or feeling, some daydream, reliving some past experience. As soon as you notice that this has happened, as soon as you notice that you're involved in this, pull out. Observe it as if from a distance. Be a detached onlooker to that experience. And return to your breath. And when you notice that you've been involved in that thought or that daydream, whatever it is, because you're a detached onlooker, and because you really don't have any goal other than this one simple goal, to be aware, you don't have to get angry, you don't have to get frustrated, you don't have to get annoyed, you don't have to feel that your mind has defeated you. All you have to do is act to develop the attitude of the detached onlooker. So you see that experience as if from a distance. No need to comment, no need to get emotionally involved. You just return to your breath. Now this is very important to remember. That the purpose of the practice for the time being is to develop this mindfulness, awareness, this being in the present moment. Now what inevitably happens is that people think that the purpose of this particular practice is not to be aware, but to concentrate. The word being samadhi. But I would ask you to put that idea aside for the time being. Because when you're trying to concentrate, you see every experience of not concentrating as a failure. And in order to continue concentrating, you have to resolutely push aside anything that takes that prevents you from concentrating. So, as it were, you have divided your experience into two. A good experience, being able to concentrate. Negative experiences, not concentrating. And quite often the result of this is a great deal of tension and frustration. Anything but tranquility and calm. Now, concentration has a role to play in meditation, and perhaps we can talk about that later. But for the time being, we are talking about anapanasati. Sati, mindfulness of the in and out breaths. So what is happening in this practice is you're mindful of whatever happens. Whatever experience happens, you are mindful of it, but giving precedence to the experience of breathing. Giving more attention to the experience of breathing. So, if your attention goes away to some thought or some daydream, and you become aware of that, if you're able to observe it with the attitude of the detached onlooker, there's no problem. It is simply another experience that you're able to be aware of. You make a mental note of it, I'm aware of that experience, and then come back to your breath. And if you do that, you will succeed. Your meditation will be fruitful, and within a very short time. That is the reason why this practice involves sitting, being aware of the in and out movement of the breath. In time, in a few weeks from now, we will start explaining how that awareness of the breath can be gradually expanded, become more pervasive, so that we're able to be aware of other aspects of our experience. But for the time being mindful and aware of the breath. Now I'd like to talk about one other point. Many people start meditation. Many give up within a very short time. And not just meditation. I'm told that people who go to weight loss clinics, the number of people who actually finish the course is very, very small. Many people buy a membership of a gym, but the number of people who use it regularly is really very, very small. In present day, with various distractions and things being so easily available, the tendency is to have a desire, respond to it, but within a very short period being distracted by another desire and so on. As with weight loss programs and exercise regimes, so with meditation. So we need to know what we have to do to avoid dropping out, giving up, or just losing interest. And the main reason why people do this is because they think it is very difficult. So they will tell you there's too much noise. They will tell you that they don't have the time. But most of all, the real reason for most people is they find the distracting thoughts very frustrating. But I would like to give you the good news, and the good news is this. Noise really isn't the problem. If you're interested, you'll find the time. And the discursive, the distracting thoughts shouldn't be a problem. All you need is one thing. And if you have this one simple thing, I assure you, your meditation will succeed, it will mature, and you will reap all the benefits from it. And what is that one thing? It's simply to develop the habit to sit and do the practice every day. That's all you have to do. If you do it every day, then you will succeed. So you may think, oh, I did the sitting today, but it was so difficult, there were so many distractions and so on. Doesn't matter. It's a small matter. If you sat for that whole 15 minutes, or for the next week, if you sat for that whole 20 minutes, and you did it every day, there is absolutely no doubt that your practice will develop, it will mature, and you will reap all the rewards from it. So, I would like to encourage you to very quickly develop the habit of doing it, perhaps doing it at the same time every day. So if you do that, you change you adjust your schedule to fit in. Just the same way as you find time to shower every day, just as the same as you find the time to eat every day, just as you always find the time to sleep every day, because it has become a part of your routine. Likewise, if you do it every day, within a very short time, it will become a regular part of your routine, and it will be so easy to do. It's not energy that helps you succeed in meditation. It's not lack of thoughts. That's not what will help you succeed in meditation. Simply making the resolution to sit for that full period of time every week, and I assure you, you will succeed. Good day again, and welcome. We're going to continue our series of talks on meditation. So now it will be the third week that you have been practicing meditation. And you will recall that we have been basically talking about mindfulness of breathing. Having a mindfulness, an awareness, a presence of the fact that you are breathing. And we said that the purpose of this is to gradually allow us to be in ourselves to a larger degree than we normally are. Because if we are not, we are a prey to all the external forces that impinge upon us. We said that when we are more mindful and aware, we're in a better position to know what is happening in us and to us, and therefore in being in a better position to make choices that are intelligent, rather than being led by impulse or emotions. And we said also that the beginning of this process of becoming aware is taking one particular object, in this case the breath, and simply start by being aware of that. To start by seeing if we can be aware of an ordinary, commonplace experience like breathing. The reason being that if we can be aware of that, hopefully we can gradually extend our awareness to other things. For the time being, our awareness is projected. It is, for the most part, we're ignoring other experiences and just projecting our awareness onto the breath. Today I'd like to talk about things that you can do to gradually transform your awareness from being projected to becoming pervasive, so that its boundaries gradually expand to include more and more experiences. So, in the last week, this is what you've been doing. You've been sitting in a comfortable posture, with your legs crossed or folded, your hands nestled in your lap or on your knees, your eyes closed, and you have been just focusing your attention, being aware of the fact that you are breathing. Your attention may have been focused on the up and down movement of your abdomen, or on the cool sensation as you breathe in, the warm sensation as you breathe out, the expansion or contraction of your lungs. You may have been counting your breath. It doesn't matter. Any of these techniques that you could have been doing is okay if it's helped you to become more aware of your breathing. And in the last week, you will have noticed that you've been in two minds about things. On the one hand, there is the desire to want to be aware of the breath. On the other hand, the mind has seemed to have a life of its own, hasn't it? Despite you wanting to simply be aware of the breath, your mind has said, no, I want to be aware of that sound outside, or that feeling, or I want to pay attention to that experience you had last week. I want to remember that experience. So you'll have found that you've been in two minds about this. A desired aim, and an aim that seems to be beyond your desire, beyond your control, beyond your will. But we did say, and I hope you took this seriously, that it was very important not to worry and not to be overly concerned when your awareness goes to other things, because the last thing you want to do is to turn this into a struggle, a battle. That's the last thing you want. This will just exhaust you to no good purpose. So this is what you've been doing for the last week, and now this week I want to talk about two things that you can now add to the practice that you've been doing to help your awareness to become gradually more expansive, more inclusive. So, between now and next time when we meet, this is what I'd like you to do. Once a day, at least once a day, go to the place where you do your meditation. Sit down with your legs crossed or folded, or on a chair, keeping your back straight, your hands nestled in your lap or on your knees. Close your eyes. Allow your body to be comfortable and relaxed. And then just become aware of your breath. A long breath, a short breath, a warm feeling, a cool feeling, the expansion of your upper body, your chest, the contraction, the rise and fall of your abdomen. Simply be aware that all of that is happening. Be aware that you are here now, breathing in and out. Communicating with the external world, the universe, by taking it in and allowing it to come out. Within a few moments, you will hear a sound outside, or you'll begin to notice an itching feeling on some part of your body. Or you might start remembering something that happened a few hours ago. Or it's possible that you start thinking about something that you have to do when you finish your meditation. This has been your normal experience for the last week, and it will continue to be a big part of your experience for some time to come. So you're sitting there and you notice these things, you return your attention to the breath, you re-establish your awareness on the breath. Now this time, what I'd like you to do is this. When you notice that your attention has gone away, that it is no longer on the breath, but it's on something else, I'd like you to scrutinize that object, whatever it happened to be, for a few moments. And then return to the breath. Re-establish the awareness of the breath. Scrutinize the object that your attention has gone away to for a few moments, and then re-establish your attention on your breath. And how can you do this? I will compare it to like buying fruit. Going to the market and buying some apples or some mangoes. What do you do when you go to the fruit shop or the market to buy apples or mangoes? You go there, you look at the fruit displayed, you pick up one, you hold it in your hand and you scrutinize it. You look to see if it has any marks on it or bruises. Then you put it down. You don't just pick it up and put it down, you observe it, you examine it for some time, then you put it down, just for a few moments. Then you pick up another one, smell it, you put it down. If you can do that to the objects that take your attention away from the breath, this will be very helpful. And if you can do that, what you are doing is you're gradually expanding the boundaries of your awareness to other experiences. And if you are sitting in a quiet room with your eyes closed, you will only have a limited number of experiences. There will be hearing experiences. You will hear sounds. There will be thinking experiences. Daydreams, fantasies, memories, dreams, plans. And there will be feeling experiences. You will feel the tightness of your clothes under your arm, or the tightness of your belt, or the feeling of the fabric on some part of your body. You'll feel your collar around your neck. Or you'll feel, if you're in an air-conditioned room, you might, or with a fan, you might feel cool on this side and a slightly different feeling on the other side. Or you might feel some tingling, touching, itching feelings. It doesn't matter. If you're sitting in a comfortable posture, with your eyes closed, these are the only experiences you'll have. Hearing experiences, thinking experiences, and feeling experiences. So this is what you are to do. You're sitting there, your attention goes away to something. You've just noticed that instead of being with the breath, your attention has gone away to something. First of all, note what the experience is. Is it a thinking experience? Is it a feeling experience? Or is it a hearing experience? Let's say it's the sound of the traffic outside. So your attention goes away. You're listening to the cars. You can hear the sound of the cars outside. As soon as you notice that, just say to yourself, hearing. Then for a few moments, just scrutinize the facts. Be aware of those sounds Be aware of the fact that your attention is on them. And having done that, re-establish your attention, your awareness on your breath. So this is the next step in the process of meditation. Gradually expanding the boundaries of your awareness. So last week, the intention of your practice was to be aware only of the breath. Now we're asking you to be aware of any experience, including the breath, using the breath as the center of focus, using the breath, as it were, as an anchor, being aware of other things, coming back to that center, being aware of a sound, coming back to the center, being aware of a feeling, coming back to the center, being aware of a thought, a daydream, a fancy, a fantasy, coming back to the center. That's the first thing. So now you add this, the discipline of scrutinizing, to your practice. That's the first thing. And between now and next week, I would like you to increase the amount of time that you're meditating by 5 minutes. And add to the practice that you've been doing so far, the discipline of scrutinizing. So, that's the first thing. Now there's one other thing that you can do to expand the boundaries of your awareness. Between now and next time we meet, what I'd like you to do is select from all the regular activities that you do, select one. Some behavior, some activity, some task that you do at least once or twice a day. So for example, it could be eating, which you probably do 3 times a day, at least. It could be going to the toilet, which you may do 2 or 3 times a day. It could be walking to work or back again, or walking to the railway station to get to work, and walking back from the railway station to home when you finished your work. It could be washing your face or washing your hands. It could be putting on your clothes in the morning, take them off before you do your exercise, putting other clothes back on again, and then taking your clothes off before you go to bed. Doesn't matter what it is. Think of select some particular activity that you do at least 2 or 3 times a day, every day. Take, for example, let's say that you have selected the task of dressing and undressing. So this is what you do. Before you go to bed this evening, write a note to yourself and put it beside your bed. Then in the morning when you wake up, you spend a few moments becoming fully awake. Perhaps you go to the bathroom, have a wash and what have you, and now you're getting ready for work. And you have selected the task of dressing and undressing. So from the moment that you reach down to pick up your clothes to put them on, see if from the moment you start dressing to the moment you finish dressing, that you can do that mindfully and with awareness and presence. Not thinking of something else, simply being with this particular task. So you pick up the shirt. You feel the coolness of the fabric. You are aware of how you put it on your back. You're aware of how you put your arms through the sleeves. You're aware of the feel of the buttons, how you manipulate them into the buttonhole. You're aware as you pull your shirt down, as you tighten your belt, as you put on your trousers, as you put on your socks, as you tie your shoes. As much as possible, see if you can do that task, if no other, at least that task, as mindfully and as aware as you can. Being totally with that task. And then in the evening, when you come home from work or you're about to go to bed, again, you may notice, hopefully you will notice the note that you have put beside your bed. And you think, my task as a meditator is to undress as mindfully as I can. That note can help you to remind you to do that. And then you do exactly the same thing, being fully aware, only this time being fully aware as you take off your garments, your clothes. Or let us say you select another task, washing the dishes. You probably have to do that perhaps at least twice a day, or maybe 2 or 3 times a day, or washing any dish or plate or cup, to help you to remember, because sometimes we are so unaware that we forget to follow out the task that we've set ourselves. So maybe you can put a note beside the kitchen sink. Be aware. And when the meal is finished at the end of the evening, you make a resolution for yourself. From the time I reach to turn on the tap to the time I finish the tap, I will try to be totally with this task. Not doing it so that I can get back to the television. Simply doing and being completely with that task. Feeling the cool or the heat of the water. Being aware as you reach out to get the dishes. Inspecting them to make sure that they're clean. Pulling out the plug. The sound of the water as it goes down the sink. Just being completely with that task and nothing else. Or let's say you select eating. From the time, my resolution is from the time I pull out the chair to sit down, to the time when, having finished my meal, I stand up. My resolution, my practice, is going to be as mindful and as aware as I can while I'm eating my food. I won't read the newspaper. I won't listen to the radio. I will simply observe the food, smell it, taste, feel, become aware of the texture of the food on my tongue, chew it fully, experiencing the taste, being as aware as I can as I reach out to get another dish, listening to the sound of the spoon in the teacup, whatever it happens to be. My resolution will be to do this task with mindfulness and awareness as much as I possibly can. So what you are doing now, if you do this, if you add this dimension to your practice, you can see that what is happening is, first of all, the first practice, the discipline of scrutinizing, is that while you're sitting meditating, you're gradually becoming aware of the multiplicity of experiences. Having started with one experience, the gentle in and out movement of the breath, you are now expanding it to the multiplicity of experiences, sounds, feelings, thoughts, and so on. But the reality is, if you're meditating for 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes is not a big part of your experience. It's a very small part of your experience. And it's also perhaps the least interesting part of your experience. So then, when you're not meditating, you have selected some other experience. Going to the toilet, washing the dishes, putting on your clothes or taking them off, eating. Some task. And that's becoming a meditation for you. And the wonderful thing about that is that if you do this, the commonplace becomes special, or can become special. Something that you do and have done for years can become a stepladder to some spiritual dimension. So just to reiterate, between now and next week, what you should do is, first of all, expand the period of time in which you sit in meditation by 5 minutes. The second thing you should do is add to the practice that you've been doing so far by scrutinizing for a few moments, by labeling as either thinking experiences, hearing experiences, or feeling experiences, labeling whatever your attention goes away to as one of these three, scrutinizing it, examining it for a few moments, and then returning to your breath. That's the first thing. And the second thing is selecting some task, some ordinary, commonplace task that you do 2 or perhaps 3 times a day, and making the resolution to do that task with as much mindfulness, with as much awareness as you possibly can. And as we said before, the purpose of this is not just to deepen, but to expand the ambit of your awareness. And with that, we will finish, and we'll meet again next week. Good afternoon, and everybody. Hello. Today we are going to start the 4th of our series of talks on meditation. And you recall that last time we spoke of the things that you could do to help or to encourage your awareness, sati, your mindfulness, to become more expansive. We said that the idea is to start with one object, the in and out movement of your breath, and then gradually to become increasingly aware of other things, other experiences. And the second thing we talked about was selecting some activity in your daily life, an ordinary activity, washing the dishes, going to the toilet, putting off or taking on your clothes, to select such an activity and at least to try to do that particular thing as mindfully as you can. today what I'd like to talk about is not so much on how to expand your awareness by doing something in particular, but to both expand and integrate your awareness into yourself by developing a particular type of attitude or outlook, a particular way of meditating, a particular way of thinking about meditation. Now, as in all worthwhile activities, there are some ways of doing the practice that are not very helpful. And I would have to tell you, after many years of practicing meditation with others, and teaching others meditation, I'll have to tell you that I've often had the experience of meeting people who have been meditating sometimes for years, and either they don't seem to be any different from what they were before, or sometimes they're different but they're more negative, or sometimes even that they seem to have developed some genuine personality problems. And the interesting thing is that there are many different techniques of meditation. Even within one particular school of Dharma, say the Theravadan tradition, even within the Theravadan tradition, there are many different techniques of practicing meditation. In fact, I think it might be true to say that everybody who teaches meditation has their own particular slant, their own particular technique. And what I've noticed is when I meet people who seem to have genuinely benefited from their practice, they seem to come from all the different, or they seem to have practiced all the different techniques. Some Goenka people are fantastic, and some Mahasi Sayadaw students are really going very well, or some insight meditation students that seem to have benefited a great deal, or students of this particular Sayadaw or that particular Achan, and the obverse is true. When I look at people who don't seem to have either been changed by their meditation practice, or that they don't really seem to have benefited from their meditation practice, I notice they're in all particular techniques, some more than others. And this makes me think that in actual fact it's not the technique so much that is important, but the attitude, the outlook that you bring to it, how you do it. Not so much what you do, but how you do it. How do you do meditation? Not the technique, but what attitude do you bring to meditation that will make it something really beautiful and good for your life, a real benediction? My feeling is that there are three things. If you have these three things, if you welcome these three things into your practice, if you integrate these three things or take these three things into account as you meditate, your practice will be successful. It will transform you in ways that are really beneficial. And what are those three things? Piety, samatha, and dhammata. Piety, joy, a joyful outlook, a joyful attitude. Samatha, balance. And dhammata, naturalness. And it is these three things I'd like to talk about today. When you are sitting practicing meditation, And when you are trying to practice meditation integrating some meditation practice into your daily life, like washing the dishes mindfully, going to the toilet mindfully, cleaning your shoes mindfully, vacuuming the floor mindfully, and even when you are not meditating at all, consider the importance of these three things: joy, balance, naturalness. Why is joy important? You will have noticed by now that developing regularity of practice, sitting every day and sitting for the full time, at least in the beginning, is a challenge. You can think of numerous excuses, either to cancel your meditation sitting for today or to start it but to finish it early. We can think of a reason why not to do it tomorrow, and so on. But there comes a time when you go beyond the meditation for duty stage and you get to the stage where you're meditating because it's so good for you. You enjoy it. Enjoy. It is a joy. It gives you joy. When you've got to that stage, you don't have to make an effort anymore. You do it because you like it. So in actual fact, joy or happiness, felicity, is actually very important in meditation. Once you've got to the joy stage, the battle is won. And joy has all sorts of benefits, quite apart from being intrinsically valuable in itself. Now, not everybody seems to be like that. I meet meditators, indeed, I often meet meditators who seem to have become stern, unsmiling, rigid. They don't look happy. They look very, very serious. They never smile. One reason is because they've got it all wrong and they think that to be serious you've got to look serious. And another reason is that perhaps the meditation is actually not genuinely bringing about a change. When people ask me, what is the criteria by which I can determine whether my practice is working or not? And I always say, if you can look back and say, I'm happier, I'm more joyful than I was before, then definitely your practice is working. By that I don't mean that when you meditate you'll be happy all the time, you'll never have any problems, you'll never be down. No, certainly not. But generally speaking, you are happier than you were before. Another value of joy is that over a period of time, against the background of joy, being more joyful in your life has the ability to dissolve or to untie some of the more deep-seated emotional knots or problems that you may have in the unconscious. Joy has this wonderful ability to rid you of any sort of deep-seated traits that you may have developed over a period of time. So how do you develop this joy? This is not so easy to say. But you can start by making sure that your body is always relaxed. Never tensen or tighten your body. Always keep your body comfortable and relaxed. Indeed, a period of yoga or a session of Tai Chi or some form of mindful exercise before you meditate is very helpful. And while you're meditating, every now and then putting your attention on certain parts of your body to make sure that they're not tight, that's very helpful too. But more than anything else, it's an attitude. I am meditating because I love myself. I'm meditating as an act of kindness to myself. May my meditation succeed. May the defilements retreat. May the virtues expand. With an attitude like that, you tend to become more joyful. Another thing that helps joy is that you take the precepts seriously. The precepts are to avoid harming living things, rather to enhance life. The second precept is not to take what belongs to others, but rather to share with others what belongs to you. The third precept is to uphold the dignity of others by not taking advantage of them or exploiting them for your own pleasure. The fourth precept is, rather than communicating lies, to communicate the truth. To be truthful and have veracity in your communication with others. And the fifth precept is to respect your mind by always keeping it naturally alert, in its natural state, not befuddled by drugs or alcohol. These are the 5 precepts. And when you do this, it tends to decrease the conflicts that you have in your daily life and increase the joy. So in the case of the first precept, this allows me to respect the life of others. In the second precept, I develop a respect for the property of others. With the third precept, I respect the dignity of others. With the fourth precept, I respect the other's right to have the truth, to be spoken to truthfully. And in the fifth precept, I'm respecting the clarity of my own mind. Now, when I relate to others more with respect like this, in almost all cases, they will relate to me with a similar respect, and my life tends to become easier. Less tensions, less conflicts. And when that is the case, I tend to be happier. These are some of the things that you can do to enhance joy. And the more joy you have, the easier your meditation becomes. The more you want to meditate. Balance, samatha. Sometimes I think the only thing that prevents people from benefiting from meditation is simply a lack of balance, a sense of proportion. The typical meditator often goes like this. They become very interested in meditation, then they become very gung-ho. They want to meditate all the time. Naturally enough, very soon they become exhausted and they give up. No energy left anymore. About a week later they start to feel guilty. Oh my God, I haven't done any for a while. So they meditate with a vengeance again, and it's off, on, stop, start. No balance. Another problem can be that people disassociate meditation from the overall Dharma. They think that the Buddha taught the Noble One-Fold Path instead of the Noble Eightfold Path. they think that I can meditate and just proceed as before. And the reality is that's not possible. Meditation is one part of a system. The other part of the system is developing some understanding, developing a morality, a sense of morality and integrity, and things like that. And so they don't have a balance. Meditation is ripped out of the whole system and done independently of the rest of the Dharma. There needs, for meditation to be successful, there needs to be a sense of balance and proportion and equipoise in all of the elements of the spiritual life. So, for example, there needs to be a balance between solitude and fellowship. Always going off to wanting to run away to the jungle or the Himalayas, living in a cave. It's a romantic thing. Spend time in solitude and silence. But don't forget your friends and your family too. Spend time with them. There needs to be a balance between meditation and an intellectual appreciation of the Dharma. And some reading, because it gives you a sense of direction. The Buddha's discourses are full of useful hints and guidelines on how to practice meditation. So if you are well versed in the theory, and that is balanced with practice as well, well, that's wonderful. That's very, very wonderful. There needs to be a balance between the state of the body and the state of the mind. This can be a problem in some traditional Buddhist countries. Buddhist monks sometimes don't do a lot of physical exercise. Indeed, sometimes they do none at all. Healthy body doesn't mean a healthy mind. But it's also true that a healthy mind does not necessarily mean automatically a healthy body. Look after your physical state. Take some account of your diet. Exercise your body. Treat it kindly. And then it will become a suitable place in which your mind can dwell. So a balance between these two is very good. There needs to be a balance between exerting yourself and knowing when to take it easy. The Buddha said that success in meditation in relation to the energy input you put into your practice is like catching a quail by hand. You know, quail is this small bird. So he said it's like a man who catches a quail in his hand. In his hands. If he doesn't hold it tight enough, it will fly through his fingers. If he holds it too tight, he might squeeze it to death. He has to know just the right balance in the energy. And so it is with meditation. If you're alert and sensitive to yourself, you'll know when to increase the pressure a little bit, when to loosen it. So balancing your energy too, very, very helpful, extremely helpful in your practice. So that's the second thing that you need to bring to your practice, a sense of balance in everything that you do. And the last thing, dhammata, that which is natural, being natural. Sometimes the way people meditate, rather than becoming mindful, they become, what you might say, awkwardly self-aware. awkwardly conscious of themselves, and indeed awkwardly conscious of all sorts of things. You see some people, the way they practice the precepts, they're constantly worried about whether they stood on an ant accidentally or not, constantly nervous about whether they respected the teacher in the right way, always worried about whether they're doing it in the right way, and so on. So they become aware, but it's sort of the wrong type of awareness. Another thing is that there comes a time when your practice has to just become a natural part of your daily life. So in the beginning, and indeed for quite a long time, selecting a time and a place and using a particular technique is not only helpful, I would say that it's absolutely essential. But if it remains like that, then this may not be helpful. There comes a time when, having climbed up, you can knock the ladder aside. Having crossed the stream, you can abandon the raft. Now, many people want to knock the ladder aside or abandon the raft long before they should. However, becoming more natural, relaxed in your practice is extremely helpful, both when you're meditating and when you're not meditating. Allowing it to be just a normal part of your life. No big deal. Nothing special. The attitude, I think, I have never heard it so beautifully and accurately summed up by that old Zen saying, sitting quietly, doing nothing, the spring comes and the grass grows by itself. That's a very beautiful way of putting it. If we're constantly looking over our shoulder to see how far we have come, if we're always looking ahead to see how far we're going, if every time we talk to our fellow meditators we're nervously discussing which of the various steps we've reached, this may not be a good sign. Allow your meditation to unfold naturally. When awareness is ready, it will come. Your job is to put all the pieces in place, sit and do your practice, and allow the flowers to bloom when they are ready. Now, if you do these three things, if you bring these three things to your meditation, there is no doubt that it will be very, very helpful. Allow your meditation to gradually, indeed, allow your whole life to gradually become more joyful. Do everything you do with a sense of balance and proportion. And as much as possible, allow things to gradually unfold naturally. And if you do this, your meditation will be going very, very well. Next week, next time, I want to introduce to you another type of meditation to go hand in hand with what we've talked about so far. So if there's nothing else, we'll finish for today. Thank you for listening. Good afternoon again and welcome. Over the last few weeks we've been talking about the practice of meditation in the Buddhist tradition, and in the last 2 weeks in particular we've been talking about mindfulness, presence, gradually becoming aware of what happens in us and to us as and when it happens. And we've said that the purpose of this is simply to become more aware so that we know what is happening to us, how we feel, what's really going on in our mind, so that we're in a better position to make intelligent judgments about how to behave. And we have emphasized very strongly that mindfulness is about detached watching, being a detached onlooker. And indeed, that is what it is about, to allow there to be a space between our experience of something and then reacting to it. And as that space expands, it gives us the possibility of making a choice, deciding whether we're going to react or not, and if we're going to react, how. So when we're talking about detachment, we tend to think of this in terms of equanimity, or perhaps even indifference, or disengagement. And there is an element of truth in that too. However, it is possible that we can become detached in a way that is not skillful or not helpful to us. It is possible that we could develop what you might call a clinical detachment. They use this term clinical detachment because the scientist or the doctor or the nurse tries to develop this type of detachment. They're working in the hospital all day with people perhaps with horrible diseases or terrible injuries, and if they reacted emotionally each time this happened, very soon they would become exhausted. They wouldn't be able to do their job. So they deliberately cultivate a clinical detachment. They objectify the patient. Now, we don't want to develop that type of detachment. We want to develop what I will call a warm detachment. At first this may appear to be paradoxical, but indeed it is possible. And so today we're going to talk about another type of meditation that we can do together with mindfulness of breathing, so that we develop not a clinical detachment, but a warm detachment. We've said before that the Buddha talks about many different types of meditation, and one of the meditations he talks about is called Metta Bhavana. Metta Bhavana. We said before that Bhavana means mental development, or if you like, meditation. And metta comes from the Pali word mitta, a friend, or mittata, friendliness. So we can call metta warm concern, loving interest, or more commonly translated as loving kindness. The development of loving kindness. And the purpose of this meditation is to balance detachment. The purpose of this meditation is to engage the emotions in the process of meditation, in the process of spiritual development. Wisdom and compassion. The head and the heart. Or the knowing quality of the mind, the feeling quality of the mind. We know that meditation, emotional involvement can often be very problematic. Strong attachment, strong love, strong hate, this can be very distorting for consciousness. But we also know that emotions can uplift, they can inspire, they can motivate us. So why shouldn't we harness the power of the emotions, particularly the positive emotions, in the spiritual quest? And that is the purpose of Metta Bhavana. How do you do this meditation? How do we Metta Bhavana? How do we develop loving kindness? Let us say you're doing your ordinary practice. You're sitting down in a comfortable posture, putting your hands in your lap or on your knees, relaxing your body, and just focusing your attention on the breath, being aware of the in-breath, aware of the out-breath. Let's say you're doing this for half an hour a day. In time, and now you've been doing for about 4 weeks, in time, it is bound to happen that there will be periods when you do feel quite detached. You're aware of the breath, but effortlessly. You might even be aware of thoughts arising and passing away, but not getting involved in them. Maybe this only happens for a short period of time, or maybe for an extended period, a minute, half a minute, 2 minutes, but it will happen soon. And it may be that when this happens, you feel a deep but subtle joy. In the beginning it might be almost like a sense of relief that the mind has become quiet, a sense of achievement. Or it may be that you're doing this meditation and then for a few moments, quite unexpectedly, joy descends, sometimes quite strong joy. It often happens that the first time this occurs to you, it is often spoiled because we think, goodness, what's that? This must be it. I'm at the portals of enlightenment. And those interrupting thoughts can spoil it, they can make it dissipate. But if you are doing a regular practice, keeping the body relaxed, not being too concerned about results, this is bound to happen. A deep, still, subtle joy, or sometimes quite a strong joy. It might be for a few moments, it might be for a few minutes, perhaps even longer. If this happens, this is what I would like you to do. If and when this happens, this is what I'd like you to do. When you notice that there is a subtle joy, or this perhaps more intense joy, remove your attention from your breath. Focus your attention on the center of your chest, your solar plexus. Focus your attention on the solar plexus. And then what I'd like you to do is deliberately and consciously think of yourself. And then quietly, in your mind, say these words to yourself. May I be well and happy. May I be peaceful and calm. May I be protected from dangers. May I achieve my aspirations. May my mind be freed from hatred. May my heart be filled with love. May I be well and happy. Just repeat those words silently to yourself. Repeat those aspirations. Repeat that benediction to yourself. Then, with your attention continuing to be focused on the center of your chest, think of one person you really love. One person whose presence you cherish. And do the same thing. May they be well and happy. May they be peaceful and calm. May they be protected from dangers. May they achieve their aspirations. May their mind be freed from hatred. May their heart be filled with love. May they be well and happy. And then when you've finished that, think of one neutral person, someone you come into contact with often, but towards whom you really don't have any feelings one way or the other. You haven't really got a relationship with them. Perhaps the man at the corner shop, or your neighbor, somebody at work. You see them often, but you're disengaged, you have no feelings towards them. Think of one such person and do the same thing. May they be well and happy, so on. And then think of someone you don't like. Just one such person. Now, if you're an ordinary person, you probably have one or two people who you strongly dislike, perhaps even hate. And then you have other people who just dislike them a bit. And then one or two others that just annoy you a bit. Don't think of somebody towards whom you have very strong negative feeling. Just think of somebody that you dislike. Think of that one person and do the same thing. May they be well and happy. May they be peaceful and calm, and so on. So myself, a loved one, a neutral one, a disliked one. And then finally, you can do two things. Perhaps one time you do it, you can do it this way. The next time you do it, you can do it that way. Finally, think of all the people you know. May they all be well and happy. Or try to imagine all the people in your area. May they all be well and happy. Perhaps all the people in my country. And then finally, everyone. May everyone be well and happy. Peaceful and calm, and so on. So that is one way you can do it. Or else another way you can finish is by thinking of one person that you know or know of, or who you have read about or heard about, who is suffering some tragedy. Perhaps you don't even know their name. Perhaps you saw a picture of them on the television, grieving, frightened, at a loss. Picture that person in your mind. And bless them, wish them well also. May that person be well and happy. May they be peaceful and calm, and so on. So, you start with yourself, then with someone you love, then with someone you don't really know, then with somebody you do not like, and then finally either all people or perhaps one particular person who you know or know about who is experiencing suffering. And that is the end of the practice. How long do you do this for? 10 minutes. 12 minutes. How often do you do it? You can do it at any time. But the best time to do it is when you are feeling some positive feeling, when you have been uplifted, when you are feeling joy, particularly if the joy has arisen due to your meditation practice. But there may be other times when you feel joy too. You've been listening to some beautiful music. You've just read a poem that has uplifted you. Perhaps you're just sitting at home and you just feel very positive. Instead of just sitting there, enjoying it, utilize it. Manipulate it creatively by doing this practice, metta bhava. Now, some people think that this practice is superficial. It's just a feel-good practice. But I disagree with that. My personal experience and the experience of many others is that this can be really very transformational in the best sense. That it can untie any knots or negativities that you have towards yourself. It can make you more appreciative of those that you already love. It can help to establish and build a relationship with people that you've really never bothered about. And that is a good thing. And it can help to heal any rifts, emotional rifts, that you have with other people. And anybody who has done this practice will tell you that it can be very effective in this way. So although some people may do this in a superficial and sort of a sentimental way, there is no need for you to do it like that. If you do this properly, within the context of your general practice, very, very good for you. A very beautiful balance with mindfulness of breathing. Now, why is it structured in this way? because there is a very particular structure, and at least in the beginning, it's very good to follow this structure. Myself, a loved one, a neutral person, a disliked person, all persons. It often happens that for various reasons people have problems with themselves. They suffer from self-depreciation, sometimes even self-loathing. It may be their upbringing. It may be that they have done or they think they have done something very bad. It may be their religion has told them that they are unworthy, sinful. There can be very many reasons for it. Some people just feel bad about themselves and they don't know why. Whatever it is, this is very destructive. If you see yourself as your own enemy everywhere you go, you will feel negative. It's almost a cliche to say, but it isn't a cliche, that if you can't love yourself, if you can't be positive about yourself, it will be difficult for you to be positive about others. So, self-appreciation, what the Buddha calls attakama or attappiya, self-respect, being affectionate towards yourself, this is a very good thing. And Metta Bhavana helps to establish that. And that's why we start by doing it to ourselves. And then actually consciously thinking about the people that we love. It often happens that we do love these people, we do have this feeling towards them, but maybe it's been a long time since we've actually put words to those feelings. Often it's been a long time since we've actually expressed those feelings to that loved person. So, as it were, to be aware of and to remind ourselves of these feelings is, in a sense, to rejuvenate them. So, when we do this to a loved person, we remind ourselves of how important that person is to us. Then when we think of a neutral person, someone we neither like nor dislike, it's very important also. Because probably most people that we come into contact with fall into this category. The man who lives 3 houses down. Every now and then you see him and you say good morning, and that's it. No relationship. Now this doesn't mean that you have to have a relationship with absolutely everybody. But certainly broadening the scope of those that we care about is a good thing. And this practice helps us to do this. We no longer, or less and less, we simply take people for granted. We cease to see them as just objects or cardboard cutouts. We start to see them as they are, persons like ourselves. And when that happens, we're able to relate to them in some way or another more than we did before. And who knows, it may be that because we start to respond to them positively, they respond to us, and we have built a new relationship, a new friendship. And then finally we think about persons that we don't like. I found this meditation very useful. Because when I start to do it, I have to think, who is it that I don't like? Will I do number A or number B, or should I do number C? And this requires me to think about why I don't like that person. And normally, if you asked yourself or somebody asked you, why don't you like that person? You'll say, because they're not nice. But the reality is that some other people like them. Probably their family likes them, their friends like them. What is it about them that prevents me from liking them? And when you think about this, it can be quite a revelation. It may be that they are not nice in some ways, but that may be not the reason why I don't like them. It may be that they're better than me, they're more accomplished, they're more good looking, or whatever. The human mind is very complex, and this is a very good way to start to get little inklings about what's really going on in my heart and mind. And if it can be that annoyance or negativity or dislike or perhaps even hatred changes or is modified, this is good for me and it is good for others. Harboring resentments and hatreds in my heart, this is not good for me, it's not good for others. If for no other reason, for your own benefit, consciously and gently work on any negativities you have towards others. And then we said, finally, you can do one of two things. Either think of all persons, all beings, everybody. This can help to open up and broaden the scope of your positive feelings, your benediction. Or to think of one person that you know or know of who is suffering from some distress or pain, and this helps to add a dimension of sympathy to your positive feeling. It keeps it grounded in reality. And this is the reason why the Buddha taught Metta Bhavana. To engage the most positive of all feelings, love or loving kindness, in the process of meditation. So between now and next week, if during that time you notice that as a result of your meditation practice your mind has become calmly joyful, or if you get a sudden experience of joy, stop what you're doing, continue to sit in the same position, but now simply take your mindfulness from your breath, place it on the center of your heart, and then first of all think of yourself, bless yourself, wish yourself well. Think of a loved person, bless them, wish them well. Think of a neutral person, bless them, wish them well. Think of a disliked person, do the same. And then finally think of all persons, all beings, or one person, one being who you know or know of, who is in distress, and radiate your metta towards them. Next time we will talk a little bit more about Metta Bhavana and see what you have done in the previous week. Thank you and good evening. Good afternoon again. Welcome. Last week we were talking about metta bhavana, or the development of loving kindness, and we mentioned that the best time to do this particular practice is against the background of positive feeling, joy or happiness, or feeling of lightness, and that if you do this, it integrates the positive emotions, the most positive emotions, into your spiritual practice. And we suggested that a combination of these two practices, mindfulness, the ability to develop into a still watching center, and the ability to gradually learn to have positive feeling towards yourself and others, including even people who normally we find unpleasant, that a combination of both of these practices is the most important part of Buddhist meditation. So over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we have gone through these particular practices. We have talked about how to do them. And today I'd like to talk briefly about the changes that can take place as a result of these particular practices taught by the Buddha so long ago. The Buddha's understanding of the human situation is that it is we ourselves who make the world in which we live. By that I do not mean that the external world does not exist. Of course it does exist. But how we interpret it and relate to it, and therefore react to it and feel about it, that comes very much from our minds. The person who has a very suspicious disposition will see plots and enemies everywhere. The most harmless behavior will be interpreted as threatening and sinister. The person who has a rosy outlook on life may not even see threats and dangers where they are present. The purpose of the whole of the Buddhist path is, as the Buddha said, yatha bhuta jnana dasana. Yatha bhuta jnana dasana. To develop a knowledge and vision of things as they are. Not as we would like them to be, not as we hoped they were, but as they actually are. And then when we're in that position, or the more we're in that position, the more likely we will be able to make intelligent decisions about how to relate to the external world, to other people, to various situations. As it is, so often we relate in irrational, unhelpful, unskillful ways. One example would be that a person finds that they have little opportunities in life. So they take drugs, or they indulge in alcohol. In a sense, one can understand out of frustration and why a person does that, but it is simply not a rational way of dealing with a difficult situation. In other cases, people have opportunities, but they are so impatient for them that they spoil them and prevent them from coming into a reality. The purpose of Buddhist mind training is yatha bhuta jnana dasana, to have a knowledge and vision of things as they really are, so that we can make more intelligent choices about how to relate to other people and to situations that we confront in our life. So how do these two practices do that? So the first practice we've talked about is mindfulness or awareness. The ability to notice and be detached from various experiences that we have. Primarily thoughts and emotions, but feelings also. If we're able to increasingly develop an awareness of these experiences as they arise, and have a gap between them, a space before we react, then we will relate to reality entirely differently. Within that space, we will have the possibility of choosing. And where there's that element of choice, there's the possibility of acting freely rather than reacting in a conditioned or even a determined manner. So, sometimes we find ourselves provoked. The provocation may be a sudden and dramatic one, or it may be somebody hassling us over a period of time, persistently over a period of time, so we gradually get angrier and angrier and angrier, and then we explode. Either way, this may not be the best way to relate to a situation. But often we have no choice. The anger arises before we even know it, and we've reacted to it, once again, before we even know it. The reaction may be conducive. It may be that we overdo it or we lose control, and later we regret it, perhaps even severely regret it. And when these things happen, we say things to ourselves like, I was not myself, or I was out of myself with anger. And in a sense, that's exactly what has happened. We are not ourselves. We are out of ourselves, or in its simplest terms, we were not mindful and aware. If we are mindful and aware, and a sudden situation arises whereby normally we'd react with anger, chances are we have got more of an ability to hold back. So what you find as you go through life, if you're doing this practice, is that you won't be provoked so easily. And where you are provoked, you won't get so angry. And when you get angry, your anger will not last so long. And after the anger is gone, it will not leave as much angry residue. Now, of course, not all the situations in life that we encounter are negative ones like that. Sometimes positive ones create problems for us too. Temptations, the possibility of some extremely pleasant sensuous experience can sometimes lead us to make some very bad decisions, which we regret later. We end up hurting somebody or embarrassing ourselves. The same thing applies. If we can watch the experience of temptation, the possibility of some very strong sensual experience arising, and we can observe it, stand back and watch, so that there is that space there. There, within that space, is the possibility of cautious, careful decisions arising, consideration of the consequences of what we may be tempted about to do. And that may very well allow us to step back and make a more rational, a more skillful decision. So the possibilities of this are enormous. And then apart from distinct and individual experiences, there are the experiences that we have which sort of form the background of our life. So we may be irritated from time to time, but we're not irritated all of the time. We may be have pleasurable experiences from time to time, but we don't have them all the time. But it may be that beyond our ordinary discrete experiences, we have some background, more subtle, less notable experiences, like just a general frustration, a general feeling of dissatisfaction, a vague feeling of incompleteness. It very often happens when if that experience is there, we're reacting to it and acting upon it and making decisions because of it without really being aware that that feeling is there. Once again, the practice of simply sitting, watching, and being aware of what is may bring these things to our attention. And then we can start exploring them. And when we start exploring them, it may be that we're able to come to some helpful conclusion about them and end up resolving them. So you might say that the practice of mindfulness is well illustrated for us on the face of a Buddha statue. When you see a statue of the Buddha, if it is a really beautiful one, generally the face is very radiant and calm. Very rarely are the eyes open. The eyes are half open. And there's a very gentle smile on the face. And what the artist has tried to do, and if the artist has succeeded, he has given the impression of a calm, detached, peaceful watching of what is happening without getting involved. Being able to be a still center in the midst of perhaps a great deal of turmoil. As it says in the Christian tradition, being in the world but not necessarily of the world. Or to use the metaphor in Buddhism, like being a lotus hovering above the mud and the water of a swamp. If we're able to live like this, and it is certainly possible with regular meditation practice, then the whole nature of our experience changes. From one of turmoil and chaos and distress and frustration to peace, tranquility, and common sense. Then, when we're talking about metta bhavana, the development of loving kindness, what effect can this have upon our lives? According to the Buddha, we all have a very strong capacity for kindness. And my personal feeling is that it is quite a natural, perhaps even an innate quality. However, when we look around in the world, when we read the newspapers, even the local newspapers, sometimes we hear of people doing some very cruel things, even things that are cruel towards themselves. And it may be that even from time to time we have done that. Or somebody has done that to us. So what is happening? Under normal circumstances, I think that it is more likely that we are likely to act in a good and a wholesome and a friendly and a kindly manner. Unfortunately, situations are such that they often provoke in us. Our desires are such that we often ignore or even find that we are incapable of feeling like that because other qualities have come into play. Jealousy, egoism, self-interest, greed, impatience, anger, And these qualities smother, hinder, hold back, or even completely inundate the innate capacity to be kindly and good. With the practice of mindfulness and awareness, we start to come to terms with, notice these negative qualities, and they start to weaken. Often they start to weaken simply because they have been exposed to the light of awareness. But it is not enough that we simply remove the stifling negative qualities. We also have to remind, as it were, we also have to remind our heart to express kindness. We have to allow it to have the exercise to make these qualities strong. And the thing that does that better than anything else is the practice of metta bhavana, the development of loving kindness. So, we start with the practice that we have talked about. Blessing ourselves, those we love, paying attention to neutral persons, including them within the ambit of our kindness, and even welcoming in people that normally we would not, because they have hurt us or threatened us or whatever. And then from time to time thinking about those who are in distress, or thinking about all beings in general. Now some people hear about the practice of loving kindness and they think that this is really nothing more than a feel-good practice, nothing more than a shallow sentiment. Indeed, some people do this practice, they do this meditation in exactly that way. But my own experience and the experience of many other meditators is that if you do this in the right way, then it certainly does have a very potent and powerful effect upon opening up the heart and allowing the positive emotions to emerge. So somebody has said to me just recently, if I think about somebody that I don't like, and in my mind I bless them, I say, may you be well and happy. I may say that, but I may actually be feeling, may he be sick and unhappy. In other words, what I am saying to myself may not correspond to how I really feel. This observation was made to me just the other day. And this person said to me, what do I do in a case like that? How can I change if that is the case? And this is my answer. If you're sitting down, you're thinking of a neutral person, or somebody you don't like, and if you say, may you be well and happy, may you be peaceful and calm, and so on. If you say those words, even if that's not what you're feeling at that time, the mere fact that you're saying that shows that you wish to change, shows that you are committed to trying to come to terms with those negative feelings. And if that desire is there, if that commitment is there, in time, the feelings will correspond with the intention. So in actual fact, this practice always works. And the results of this are very, very positive. Spite, envy, minor irritation, the desire for revenge, to want to get back to people, get back at people, always wanting to be one better, the tendency to put people down, to snigger about them, to make harsh judgments about them, bit by bit, all this gradually changes. And what is the result of that? Well, the results are many and very positive. One thing is that we increasingly wing our way through life, rather than having to take time out to get back at people or outmaneuver them. We wing our way through life. We have better relationships. We have more friends. People like us more. They relate to us more constructively and more positively. And just as important, all of these negative qualities simply impart a negative feeling to us. It is true that there is a sort of a perverse pleasure in getting revenge towards somebody, or feeling spite, or getting back at them. There is a sort of a perverse pleasure, but it is often mixed with some unpleasant feeling also. And it has even been pointed out in that it is true that people who have sustained and prolonged negative feelings towards themselves or others, very frequently it comes to express itself on their face, on their countenance. It may even be, it has been suggested, that over prolonged periods it actually may cause diseases in people, which I think is very possible. Whereas when all of these negative feelings are gone, and the ability to be kindly, to look upon persons with kindness, even while seeing their shortcomings, even while knowing that they may not be perfect, the ability to forgive, being happy in letting them have their own way where it's appropriate, reaching out and being helpful. One of the main things that comes from this is you feel happier. Increasingly, happiness, joy and felicity becomes a part of your experience. The very thing that at the bottom of it we all want, that we're all questing for. We think by doing all of these other things, eliminating our enemies, striving to be better than others, either by doing dastardly things to climb above them, or preventing them from getting up to our level, whatever it happens to be, we think that that's what will make us happy, whereas in actual fact it makes us ugly and unhappy. So, the two main advantages of doing metta bhavana is that our relationships with others become smoother and that generally we become happier. Knowledge, clarity, insight on the one hand, kindness, open-heartedness and happiness on the other. One, a passive type of, one is the happiness of the absence of the negative, and the other is the happiness of the presence of the positive. And this is the very thing that all of us are searching for. Now the question is, how long does it take? How long will we have to meditate for to see these qualities start to become a part of our experience? You cannot say. Because meditation is not like a race where we're all starting from the same position. Indeed, we're all starting from a different position. personality, our personal histories are all different. We have different mindsets, different traits and tendencies. But one thing is for sure, doing meditation regularly, committing oneself to it sincerely, and in time, these changes will come. In time, we will start to experience the insight, the joy and the happiness that is usually only the privilege of the enlightened ones. I'd like to thank you all for listening to me over the last few weeks. I hope that what I've said may be of help to you, that it has helped you to better understand Buddhist meditation. And I certainly hope that you will consider what we have said and take up the practice. And when you do, I can guarantee you that it will change your life. Thank you very much.